Alrighty, and we're back. We handled a thing. We had somebody ask me about a thing, and I fixed it. So at least I hope I did. So we're good to go. Okay, so I took off the pop filter because I kept hitting it. And it was bothering me. So the last part of the show is going to sound a bit different. Sorry, it was just annoying, and I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll sound fine, right? Right. All right. If you don't like wrestling, you can go. Thanks for coming. You've been here a while. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you next week. For the rest of us, let's talk some WWE. So if you don't know. If you're new to the wrestling sphere, that's fine. So WWE has two main shows, Raw and SmackDown, and they're considered in the universe of the show separate brands. They have their own champions, their own whatever. But last year they unified the world titles, so there was one champion for each show. I did it again. I hit it again. I don't know what's going on today. So there was one champion for each show. And so they were separate. Titles were separate. Things were fine, I guess. I'm not a fan of two world titles. I think it devalues both of them. And I don't like it. I never liked it when they did it back in the day. I don't like it. I didn't like it when they did it for a long time. So they unified the titles. Roman Reigns has been the undisputed world champion for years. And they've had this whole big thing like he's like the final boss. And I think it's been great. I think it's the best story that's been going on in wrestling for a number of years. I think it's been awesome. And so I'm like, okay, so when is it going to end? You thought it was going to end at WrestleMania. It didn't. So now we're like, okay, what do we do? So they announced on Raw. Now you're caught up. There's one world champion. The titles were unified. He's got both. He's the main guy. He's like the final boss guy. All right. So they're having a draft, which basically means they're going to shake things up again, as Vince McMahon said years ago. And they're going to move people from Raw to SmackDown, SmackDown to Raw, and kind of freshen up some stories, have some new matchups, have some, get some fresh things going on in there, move people around and see what works and all that. So they're doing that. And then they announced on Raw on Monday that there's a new world championship title. And wherever Roman Reigns gets sent in the draft, whether it's Raw or SmackDown, he's going to stay there because in the meantime, he's been on both shows because he's world champion, floating between both shows, doing his programs. And now they say, okay, he's going to stay wherever he gets drafted. He's going to be champion over there. And the other one at their event, Night of Champions at the end of May, they're going to crown a new world champion. I don't like this for a lot of reasons, mainly because you now have a guy who has held the world title for 2+ years. And so you've built this up, this final boss, and everybody who's gone up to him, except for one, has failed. Seth Rollins was a disqualification. So technically he was not conquered by the boss, right? So so now you're going to have, again, a second world title, which is, there's no way. And they ran into this problem before when they had two world titles, is that there is no way both of those championships, both of those guys holding those belts are going to be seen on equal footing. It's just not going to happen, especially when one of them already will have a massive 3-year run under his belt, 1,000 days, whatever it is. And so he's already had that. He's already got that credibility of being champion. And so now ending that run was supposed to make a guy. Like, it was supposed to be a moment. It should have been a big moment for whoever solved the puzzle and outlasted all the interference, all the wonkiness that happens in his matches. We're not going to dive too deeply into that for my mom, basically. So like, the whole thing was you would conquer this final, like, somebody finally made it to the top of the mountain, as they say, and conquered the final boss, the guy. They finally took him down after 2+ years, 900 whatever days. They finally did it. And it was supposed to make a moment, be a massive thing, and then kickstart doing whatever. Maybe he goes off and I think Matt and I talked about it when we both said Cody Rhodes should have won at WrestleMania, and then Roman can go take some time off or do whatever he was going to do. And so now, whenever he loses, whenever that would be, the moment is meaningless because you are now diluting everything. Diluting everything. Is that how you say that? I've only seen it written. You are now, that's what you say, by the way. If you can't pronounce a word, say you've only seen it written. because A, it's probably true, and B, you don't sound like an idiot. So, but this whole thing of this run is now going to, like, it's not going to be as big of a deal when he loses. Like, yes, someone finally ended the, the 3-year run of him as world champion. Yes, great, awesome. But you're not the undisputed champion. You can call the belt that. You can call it the undisputed championship all you want. But as long as there are two, you're not the champion. You're a champion. And so this whole idea that you have to have, and I don't know, they just got sold recently to Endeavor, I think is the name of the company. And so maybe this is a decision that they made, said, hey, you have separate shows, we should have separate champions. Sure. In theory, sounds okay. But in reality, it doesn't always work. Because again, there's no way that those two champions are going to be seen as equal. And if they're both world champion, which again, just doesn't make sense, but if they're both considered, main champions, they should be seen on equal footing. And we know that they won't be because we've seen it before and it's not going to work. And I don't know that I would hate it as much if it wasn't ending, if it wasn't putting like a big stain on this 3-year run. Like if it had just been a regular championship guy who had it, if we didn't have this, like say Roman Reigns' run had already ended, right? Say it ended in, I don't know, January. Just for the sake of argument, say it ended months ago, and whoever is the world champion, whoever that would have been, is the guy. Like that wouldn't really make sense either. I just don't like the whole idea of splitting up the world titles. But if they were going to do that, then Cody Rhodes should have won at WrestleMania. And then you go, okay, now we're going to have the draft. Because at least then, like, you got the moment, you got the story of the whole thing, like, oh, can he do it? You got the moment of him taking down the champion. And then you don't have the 3-year run that you are now just basically crapping all over by ending it not with a big loss in a big moment at a big show, but you're essentially ending it because now someone else gets to go be a separate world champion on another show. And it bothers me because it's not like Roman Reigns was only on one show the whole time. He was going between both shows as the undisputed champion. He was on both shows, doing the whole thing, having programs with guys on Raw and SmackDown and doing the whole bit for years. And so ending a run like that, which we have not seen in a long time, was supposed to be a big deal. And now that they are adding another world title, and again, maybe it's not their choice. Maybe this is the choice of whoever bought them and is having a problem or just wants to have separate identities. From a network standpoint, I guess I understand that part of it. But I just this was supposed to be a big deal. And now it's not. It's not going to be a big thing. Because now, again, they're not becoming the champion. They're a champion. So now not only are you devaluing the title that Roman Reigns holds, you're now saying everyone who went up against him and was crushed by the loss, devastated by the loss, as far as the stories went. Now that means much less. Because instead of, I have to go beat him again, I have to go try again and beat him. Now they can go, no, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to be on this other show away from him and win this world title and be world champion over here completely separate from this guy that I tried to beat who had a stranglehold on the top of the card for 3 years. I get what they're doing. I mean, kind of, if you've done it before, I get it. And I think it can work. I mean, I like the idea in theory of the brands being completely separate, independent of each other, aside from the big shows like the Royal Rumble and SummerSlam and WrestleMania and Survivor Series, if they still put a lot of stock into that. I understand that part of it. I get the sentiment of wanting to keep things separate, but it never works out that way. And so having two world champions on your show, on your company, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And doing it this way and still having Roman Reigns as, 3-year world champion, world beater, final boss, top of the mountain, whatever cliche you want to use. Having him now as not the world champion, but a world champion. You've now devalued everything you've built with him in the last 3+ years. You have now taken that and just watered it down completely. And so now his eventual loss will be meaningless. His feuds now mean less, and the moments are gone. You had a moment, and maybe you could have, stretched it out to SummerSlam and had Cody Rhodes or whoever take him down at SummerSlam, and that would have been a big deal, and that would have worked. But now that you have another world title, it means so much less, if it means anything at all at this point, because you've built this up for so long, and to end it in this fashion it's like a fart in church, man. It's like what is it? It's going to go over like a fart in church, and it's like a wet fart. Just not going to work out. It's going to work as good as that analogy did. That's how this is going to come off. As good as that sounded just now, that as bad as that sounded, that's how this is going to come off on TV. Because now you've built this story, and you're not getting a satisfying conclusion. And Pat, why don't you wait for it to play out? You know how this is going to work. No matter, actually, you know what? We don't know. But no matter how it plays out, the fact that you've had this world beater, world champion for 3 years over here as the one guy is now going to be one of two. And you're telling me that there is a satisfactory way to end this run now that he's one of two. I don't buy it. I don't like it. If they were going to do this, if this was always the plan, or if this was the plan as of a couple months ago, then Cody Rhodes should have won at WrestleMania, because him being drafted and taking those titles with him to another show and then having another world champion on a separate show is okay. I mean, I don't love it, but that's better than ending a 3+ year run on a technicality. I mean, not really ending it, but like ending a run as the one world champion on a technicality, which is then that technicality being now we have another world title. It doesn't make any sense. I hate everything about it. And it's just not fun. You know what is fun, though? This isn't actually fun. I think it's funny when rich people get in trouble. So also, let me just say that the new world title belt, like the actual belt, looks really good. I think it looks great. But this makes the whole run look cheap, and I'm not a fan. So there you go. I summed it up. Too long, didn't listen version. There it is. All right. One more thing, and then we'll go. I think it's funny when rich people face consequences. Even though, and this is a weird one, though, because I actually met this guy in person, and he seemed like a nice guy. Ted DiBiase Jr., the son of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, if you didn't know. He is facing up to 30 years in prison on some felony counts for defrauding the people of Mississippi out of temporary assistance for needy families, TANF benefits. I did this as a bonus a couple months ago with Brett Favre. Brett Favre. When he got in trouble. And I don't know if this is the same thing. Like, is this in the same kind of ring with, is this all connected is what I'm asking? Is Ted DiBiase Jr. connected to Brett Favre in this scandal? Or did Brett Favre do one, welfare scandal and Ted DiBiase Jr. did another in Mississippi? Are these two separate things? Are they both scumbags in real life? It's weird. I met Ted DiBiase Jr. Again, I met him right after we got engaged, right after Jill and I got engaged. We met him because he did the movie, The Marine 2, and he seemed like a nice guy, seemed genuinely excited for us, and it turns out, hey, he's a So, yeah, I don't like that. Don't like that at all. What is it with rich people defrauding the poor? Like, I've never understood why, it's going to get real here for a second. I've never understood why so many people sit there and be like, oh, these people are, taking our tax money to do this, but they don't go after the rich people who are actually taking the money. And then when stuff like this happens, it's just like, all right, that's one. Like, that's one person who has been caught doing something bad. How about the rest? Also, didn't another son of Ted DiBiase get in trouble for this? I remember hearing about this a couple of years ago because everyone thought it was Ted Jr., and it turns out it was one of his other sons. What's his name? Brett? It's
his son, Bill DiBiase.
There we go. Thank you. Leave a review if you get that reference, by the way. If you remember what that was from, it's many moons ago now, but it's a joke for maybe 2 people who listen to this. So leave a review if you got it. If you didn't, I'll explain later. But I just don't get it. Like, didn't they already do this? Didn't they already go through this story? Rich guy defrauds poor people. Oh, Ted. Oh, it is. All right. So according to NBC News, this is connected to the Brett Favre scandal. Okay. All right. Brett Favre's more famous, so he's not going to get in trouble. But Ted DiBiase, he's less famous. All right. Oh, see, I knew it. Last month, his brother pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the government in connection with the welfare scandal. All right. See, I knew I didn't. Okay. All right. But there you go. So that's a weird way to end. But did I save this news story to play that clip that I played a couple minutes ago? Yes. Yes, I did. I sure did. All right. We're going to go. I don't get it. I don't understand why rich people don't what? You have money. You have money. What are you doing taking from people who need it?